You know that feeling? Someone's being lovely to you, warm, interested, asking all the right questions. And somewhere underneath the pleasantness, somewhere you can't quite point to, something feels off. Not wrong exactly, just not right. Like a photo that's slightly out of focus, you can't see the blur, but something in your brain keeps trying to correct it. And then you go home and you think about it, and you think about it again. And by Tuesday, you're on your phone at midnight, down a rabbit hole of everything this person has ever said to you, cross referencing it against their behavior at Sarah's birthday in March, building a case that would hold up in a court of law, and you're not even sure what you're trying to prove. Meanwhile, they're asleep. They're fine. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Most of us were never taught how to read people. We were taught to be polite, to assume the best, to give the benefit of the doubt, until the doubt has compounded so much interest, you can no longer afford to ignore it. So we second guess the feeling. We gaslight ourselves out of our own instincts. And then, 6 months later, when it all becomes obvious, we say, I knew it. I knew something was off. You did know. You just didn't trust it. This isn't about becoming paranoid or suspicious of everyone who's nice to you. It's about understanding what genuine people actually look like up close. So the fake ones stop getting so much of your time. Stay until the end. The last signal is the one that's hardest to fake and hardest to spot. But once you see it, you can't unsee it. Here's the part nobody talks about. Fake people aren't usually lying. That's what makes them so hard to catch. They're performing, carefully, consistently, often without even fully realizing it. They've learned, somewhere along the way, that a certain version of themselves gets better results, more warmth, more access, more of whatever it is they're after. So that's the version they show you. And the reason it works, on you specifically, because you're still here and clearly thinking about someone, is not that you're naive. It's that you've been looking for the wrong signals. You've been watching what people say, when you should have been watching what people do when they think no one's watching. Here are the 7 signals. Signal number 1, their warmth has an audience. Genuinely warm people are warm to everyone, consistently, quietly, without thinking about it. Fake warmth has a pattern. It arrives when it's useful and disappears when it isn't. It's full volume with the boss and almost inaudible with the waiter. It's generous with compliments in groups and oddly quiet in private. It's interested in you right up until it has what it came for. Calm, perceptive people learn this early. Watch how someone treats people who can do nothing for them. The waiter, the cleaner, the receptionist, the person who gets ignored in group conversations. That's not a small thing, that's the whole thing. The rest of us miss it entirely because we're too busy being flattered by the warmth that's directed at us. Someone is being charming and attentive, and we're just receiving it gratefully, like a golden retriever who's just been told they're a good boy. Of course, they seem lovely. They're currently performing loveliness directly at your face. Step outside the beam for a moment. Watch what's left. The signal. Genuine warmth doesn't have an off switch. Performed warmth does. Find the switch. Signal number 2. Their stories don't quite add up, but just slightly. Fake people aren't usually caught in big lies. Big lies are risky. What they deal in instead is something subtler, a version of events that shifts slightly depending on who's listening. The detail that changes, the timeline that moves, the story that was slightly different last time, told to a slightly different audience, with a slightly different moral. Genuine people tell stories the same way every time because they're remembering something that happened. Performed people tell stories the way that works, and what works changes depending on the room. You won't catch this in one conversation. You catch it over time. The inconsistency accumulates. And one day you'll be listening to someone tell a story you've heard before, and something will snag. A detail that's different, a fact that's shifted. And that snag is the thing worth paying attention to. Not because one inconsistency means anything. Everyone misremembers. But a pattern of convenient inconsistency, where the story always happens to make them look better. The blame always lands somewhere else. The version always serves them. That's not a memory issue. The signal. Listen to how people talk about their past. Truth stays consistent. Performance gets refined. Signal number 3, they're uncomfortable when the attention isn't on them. This one is subtle, and it's everywhere once you see it. Watch what happens when someone else in the group gets good news, or tells a funny story, or receives a genuine compliment. Does the person you're watching lean in? Or do they find a way, quickly, smoothly, almost imperceptibly, to redirect? A small comment, a slightly louder laugh than necessary, a story that begins, "That reminds me of when I..." Suddenly, the moment belongs to them again. The person with the good news is nodding along to someone else's story, and nobody quite noticed the handoff. Genuine people can celebrate others without it costing them something. Fake people can't, not really, because at some level they're operating from scarcity. Your win feels like their loss. Your moment in the light means slightly less light for them. Meanwhile, the rest of us are standing there thinking, wait, how did we end up talking about their promotion? We were talking about mine. You were, briefly, until you weren't. The signal. Watch the redirect. It's fast, it's smooth, and it happens every single time. Signal number 4. The compliments are slightly off. Genuine compliments are specific. They land on something particular, something the person actually noticed, something that required attention. Fake compliments are general, interchangeable, the kind that could apply to almost anyone and therefore apply to no one. You're so amazing. You're honestly the best. I don't know what I'd do without you. Lovely to hear, completely empty, because they cost nothing. They require no observation, no genuine attention, no real knowledge of who you are. They're warmth-shaped words that produce the feeling of being seen without actually seeing anything. Now, contrast that with someone who says, "The way you handled that situation last week, most people would have panicked, and you just didn't." That person was watching. That person noticed something specific. That is someone who is actually paying attention to you rather than performing attention at you. The gap between those two things is enormous. One is connection. The other is strategy. The signal. Vague compliments are easy to give and worth very little. Specific ones cost something. Notice which kind you're getting. Quick side note, is this helping? Want a free way to support the channel? Hit subscribe and check out the other videos on the channel. I think you'll find exactly what you need next. But first, let's spot the other signals. Signal number 5, they're different people in different rooms. Everyone code switches to some degree. You talk differently to your grandmother than you do to your colleagues. That's not fake. That's just social competence. But there's a difference between adjusting your register and becoming a different person entirely. Fake people don't just adjust, they transform. Different values in different rooms, different opinions depending on who holds the power, different personalities depending on who's watching. With one group, they're progressive and principled. With another, they're laughing at things that contradict everything they just told you they believed. Genuine people are recognizably themselves regardless of the room. Their opinions don't migrate toward whoever's most influential in the conversation. Their values don't quietly disappear when they become inconvenient. You'll notice it first as a feeling, something slightly disorienting, like you've met two people who share a face. And then you'll start to notice the joins, the places where one version doesn't quite connect to the other. That's not complexity, that's performance. And performance always has joins. The signal. Genuine people are consistent across contexts. Not rigid, consistent. The core stays the same even when the tone shifts. Signal number 6. They handle your bad news badly. This one is the most revealing, and almost nobody talks about it. Fake people are excellent in your good moments. They show up with enthusiasm when there's something to celebrate, when the association is positive, when being close to you reflects well on them. They're very present when things are going well. Watch what happens when things aren't going well. When you're struggling or failing or going through something genuinely hard. Do they lean in, or do they quietly create distance? Do they ask questions, or do they pivot to their own problems? Do they sit with your discomfort, or do they rush to fix it so they can stop having to sit with it? Genuine people can be present in the difficult moments without making it about them. Fake people find the difficult moments inconvenient because there's nothing in it for them, and discomfort without an upside is the one thing that performance can't sustain. You think about the times you've really needed someone who actually showed up, not with the right words necessarily, just showed up, stayed. Those people are real. The ones who went quiet, file that. It's information. The signal. Fair weather warmth is easy to manufacture. Showing up in the rain is not. Watch who disappears when things get hard. Signal number 7. Their interest in you stops exactly where their usefulness to you ends. This is the one underneath all the others. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Fake people are interested in you. Genuinely, it seems. They ask questions, they remember things, they check in. The attention feels real because it's consistent, and consistency feels like care. But watch the pattern over time. Watch where the interest concentrates. It's interested in what you know, who you know, what you can provide, open, influence, or access. It asks about your connections, your expertise, your resources. It shows up when there's a project, an opportunity, an ask forming on the horizon. And when none of those things are present, when you're just a person having an ordinary Tuesday with nothing to offer, the interest gets thinner, the check-in's slow, the warmth is still there, but it's at a lower temperature, just enough to maintain the connection, not enough to actually nourish it. Genuine people are interested in you on the ordinary Tuesdays, on the Tuesdays when you're boring and stuck and have nothing useful to offer anyone. They show up for the unremarkable version of you, not because of what you might do for them, but because they actually like who you are. That's the whole test, right there. Are they interested in you, or in what comes with you? The signal. Attention that tracks your usefulness is not connection. It's inventory management. And you are not a resource. None of this is about becoming suspicious of everyone who's kind to you. Most people are just people. Complicated, imperfect, occasionally thoughtless, fundamentally decent. But some people are performing, and the cost of not noticing is paid slowly, in trust and time and energy given to someone who was never really there. The 7 signals are just what to look for. The thing underneath all of them, your instinct, that slightly out of focus feeling you talked yourself out of, that was always the real signal. You just needed language for it. Now you have it. And if you made it here, you already know who you were thinking about while you were watching. That's not paranoia. That's pattern recognition. And it's one of the most useful things you own. Remember, calm is a strategy, not a personality. You've got this. See you in the next one.